What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video, and today we're taking a look at Cinematic Studio solo strings. So you might be wondering, why are you doing this video, Chris? Well, previously when I did my full review on Cinematic Studio strings, a lot of people really did enjoy it. A lot of people agreed that CSS is one of the best string libraries out there for many purposes, and I kind of wanted to take a look at maybe its underappreciated little brother or sister, Cinematic Studio solo strings. And this is a library I think not as many people either know about or care about. So I want to share with you maybe a couple of reasons why you might want to consider it. But again, if you already have your solo string libraries, you don't really want something else, then maybe this is not for you. But I think this library is underappreciated. I personally love to use it for my music, and I just want to spread the love for this library a little bit. So hopefully you enjoy it. And along the way, if you want to grab my full sample library recommendation list, I would highly recommend you downloading my sample library buyer's guide below. It's absolutely free, and you can grab it using the first link down below. And it basically goes over all my top recommendations for the different sections, strings, winds, rests, percussion, plus some other sections as well, pianos, jazz libraries, ethnic libraries. I've also included the prices and the utilities, so it's super comprehensive. You can read it in about 5 to 10 minutes if you wanted to. And yeah, you can just grab it as a gift for checking out this video today. So with that being said, let's kind of get into this library, Cinematic Studio solo strings. A beautiful effort from the Cinematic Studios series, guys. And essentially, it's a very, very similar library to CSS, right? So CSS, we have the individual sections, first violin, second violins, cellos, violas, and basses, and then you have two ensemble patches. So this library pretty much follows suit, right? Violin 1, violin 2, viola, and cello, and then we have the two ensemble patches. Now, I will say right off the bat that the most glaring omission for me is a sampled double bass. I would have loved that. I would have understood more if, this library was called Cinematic Studio Quartet or something, right? Solo quartet, which means it's violin 1, 2, viola, and cello. And a quartet does not usually contain a double bass, but because this is called solo strings, I would have expected all of the solo strings to have been covered. So it was kind of a sad day for me when I downloaded this library. I was like, oh, there's no double bass, so I had to find another elsewhere. But that being said, let's kind of get into the patches here. So we have pretty much the exact same structure on the GUI and the articulations as the other libraries, CSS, CSW, and CSB. You have standard legato and you have advanced legato in terms of the modes. The advanced legato basically introduces a slower transition as well. I just typically stick with standard. I think it's more than enough for my needs, and I would recommend that for you as well. So what we'll do is we'll play the violin one, we'll hear the legato a little bit, and then we'll go through the other articulations, share our thoughts, then move on through the rest of the patches. So with that being said, here is the violin one legato. Okay, so there we go. That's a quick look at all the articulations, and essentially, the main draw for me in this library is very similar to CSS, and that is the legato and the overall sound. So the sound overall is definitely darker, right? Than some other libraries. It has a very passionate romantic style as well, like very heavy vibrato, and it comes in quite quickly when you change notes when you're playing legato as well. So that is something that is kind of baked into the library. I think there's also non-vibrato samples as well, but you kind of have those two modes. You have non-vibrato and you have vibrato. So if you're looking for something in between, you want to slow down the vibrato a bit or make it less passionate, I don't think that's really possible. So you kind of are purchasing this library for that emotional performance just right off the bat. That being said, though, a lot of the music that I write is kind of leading into that more multi vibrato style. So for me, it kind of works out really well. The fact that it's also a little bit darker, I do really like because it helps blend into the mix a bit better. If I want to use these strings as more of a background element, then they're perfect for that. They're not necessarily meant for standalone, like soloistic lines all that much, in my opinion. There are other libraries that cut through a little bit cleaner, are brighter than these. But in terms of what they do in terms of an ensemble context or layering with one another, I think they do that really well as kind of like a quartet, if you want to say that. But the overall legato, I think for me, is really, really nice. I just like how they put a lot of attention through the transitions into the programming overall. It feels very responsive under the fingers. There's a little bit of delay similar to CSS, but the delay is pretty minimal. Like I don't feel that like I'm held back when I'm playing this library. So I really do enjoy it. And again, I have to work very little to achieve the sound I want. The performances with that style is kind of baked in, that very passionate emotional response. So yeah, that's a big draw for me to this library. Okay, let's move on to the violin 2. Slightly different sound, a little bit woodier and a little bit thinner, I think, even more so than the violin 1. But let's have a listen. It's a different alternative color. Okay, so maybe not necessarily thinner or woodier, like I mentioned. I usually use the violin 1, so I haven't experienced the violin 2 as much, so I kind of needed a refresher there. But yeah, overall, I think the performance is even more passionate than violin 1, if I'm not mistaken. It actually feels even more emotional. There's more passion there. The vibrato is even more intense. So yeah, alternative color, alternative performance, more like. So yeah, you can have that variety there, which is nice. You can have them playing together in some pretty convincing lines and create that performance. Now, I'm not too crazy about the Mercado patch. I think in CSS it works really well as a fast runs patch, especially if you want some attack at the beginning of those notes. The spiccato overlay gives you a lot of attack there because the harder you press, the harder the spiccato comes in on the beginning of each note. But for the solo strings, it's a little trickier. The faster you play, the more synthetic it kind of feels to me. So I might avoid the Mercado patch here. So yeah, these strings are definitely meant for slower melodic lines as evidenced by those transitions. The slower ones especially, you can really hear that move between notes. But for faster lines, you might not get as much realism there. So you might need a dedicated solo library for that for runs. But the other articulations, pizzicato, shorts, harmonics, and stuff, they're all pretty similar to Violins 1. Let's move on to the dark horse of this library, which I actually feel is the viola. So let me play this a little bit here. Yeah, so the legato for the viola is a patch I use all the time. If I want that slightly richer sound than the violin, and I like the viola's progressive vibrato is what I was trying to say. The violins in particular have the vibrato, but it kind of comes in right away. It feels more immediate. So in that case, it makes it slightly less flexible because um, a lot of times string performances aren't passionate all the time, right? And so you probably want that bit of held back feeling in there. You don't want it to be passionate right away. And I think the viola has a progressive vibrato where when you play one note, but then you go to the next note, the performer holds a bit before putting the vibrato in, so it feels a bit more neutral in that regard. And I think it works in a few more cases for melodic lines, which is really nice. And yeah, the overall tone is nice and full and rich. Again, pretty dark compared to some other libraries, but still consistent with this library for sure. So let's move on to the solo cello here. And let's start with the legato here as well. All right. And that's a quick listen to the cello. So, yeah, all four instruments have a lovely, consistent programming to it. The sound is very consistent as well. But I think out of all of these, I prefer the viola and the cello the most. I feel the violins are a little bit thin personally, but for layering in with, let's say, CSS or even just a slightly brighter library in an ensemble context, I think this library adds a little bit of detail, which is really, really nice. But I'm more confident using the viola and the cello for exposed soloistic lines. I think they fill out the frequency spectrum a little bit better. It's a little fuller overall. I feel the violins are a tad thin for my liking. Just a personal preference there. And then what's really cool, again, we talked about the ensemble patches in CSS. So this one is pretty similar as well. We have a light patch, which only gives you sustains, it gives you staccato, and it gives you pizzicato without the subset articulations within these latter two patches as well. Like the staccato patch usually has sforzando, staccatissimo, and spiccato as well. I think for this staccato patch though, they use either the staccatissimo or the spiccato samples, and then the pizzicato patch they literally only use the pizzicato there. So let's have a quick listen to this light ensemble patch here. All right. And the way the mics are actually positioned in these two ensemble patches are they basically bring in the instruments themselves. So in the other patches, you have the mixed mic, which is what I use like 100% of the time. But these other ones, they actually bring in the instruments in terms of the volume. So if I just want to hear violin one, then I can turn off these other ones, and I'll only hear the violin one here. So that's why when I was playing the full ensemble patch, or basically playing with all these mics on, you could hear it almost sound like an ensemble because they're literally overlapping the ranges between these different instruments. So if I turn on violin 1 and violin 2, they basically share the same range. But and that's why you can hear them basically playing together for those same samples. If we bring in the viola, the higher range of the viola overlaps with the violins, right? So you're also going to hear the viola here as well. And of course, you can turn down the violins if you don't want to hear them. So now you only hear the violin, but you can bring back in the violin 2, right? And the violin 1. And so obviously the more mics you bring in, the more instruments you're bringing in, and therefore the more it's going to sound like an ensemble playing together. So you can mix the different instruments in and out using this patch. Very, very good as a general ensemble patch. And I like that the staccato patch also goes relatively short. Like they don't choose the sforzando articulation or the staccato one, which is a tad too long for faster passages. So the shorter ones are definitely suitable, I think. And then the pizzicato is just a pizzicato. So that's nice. Before we move on, maybe let's hear these other mics just a little bit here. So here's just a little bit of the close mic. I'll use the cello here. I'll play a few notes. Okay, a little bit, definitely a more like mono image, I think. A little bit pan to the left, but you get the idea. Here's some of the main mics. And then we have the room mic. Yeah, so the close one definitely is the closest. The main is somewhere in the middle. It kind of feels like a tree, if you will. And then the room is definitely further away, but it still captures the detail and the sound just a little bit there. But yeah, if I had to guess, I think the mix is probably a combo of mainly room and then a touch of close and room there too. So mainly the main and then the close and the room mixed in there as well. And then the full ensemble patch is actually surprisingly impressive. This contains a legato of all 4 instruments in here. So it's a pretty heavy patch. It's like 4 gigabytes, you can see. I think 1 gigabyte pretty much for each legato patch. So if we turn off, let's say the other 3, if we just want to hear violins 1, we can do that. But if I bring in the violin 2, now we get the legato for both instruments. Let's bring in the viola, and now we're probably going to hear some more chamber string style stuff. Right? So this patch is basically the same as the first 4 individual patches of the different instruments, but it's all combined into this one patch. So the spiccato, you're going to hear all the different instruments coming together. Pizzicato still sounds nice and clean no matter how many instruments here are playing here. So yeah, really, really cool. You can mix and match the different instruments, raise and lower the volumes depending on how much you want to hear one over the other. But yeah, if you want like just a full sketching patch, then the full ensemble works well. If you just want to get your ideas down really quickly, then the light ensemble does its job beautifully as well. So overall, is this library for you? Well, I think when you're purchasing this library, you're mainly purchasing it for the sound and the legato performances. It is darker. It is more passionate, and the vibrato is not very versatile in terms of the number of applications you can use with it. So it's either non-vibrato or you have the vibrato on, and it's going to be, from a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of passion, it's going to be like a 9 or a 10 most cases. Violin 2 a little bit more so than violin 1, but the whole library has that intentional, very emotional, passionate performance style. So just keep that in mind that you're getting something very similar to CSS, just basically a solo version, okay? They're kind of designed to go really well together, especially like transferring MIDI data from one channel to another. It's very, very easy to do that because they're programmed in a very similar way. My standouts are still the viola and the cello. I do have a couple of the libraries that do excel in soloistic purposes, even though this library is not really meant for like standout soloistic lines. I think I can still see myself using the viola and cello quite frequently for some more exposed lines. But yeah, overall, I use the legato patches 90% of the time. I'll use the staccato and the shorter ones occasionally, but most of my lines are using longer articulations anyway. And I think this library works really well for me. So again, the main thing I'm missing here is the double bass. I wish they had that. If they did, it would become really a much more complete solo strings library, I think. But you're basically getting the core articulations, right? The stuff that you would need for most of your writing. You're not going to get a whole bunch of effects and aleatoric stuff that's reserved for other companies, other libraries. These are designed to be more workhorse, everyday traditional libraries that you would use for 90-95% of your writing. Okay. So that's a quick look at Cinematic Studio Solo Strings. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Do you have this library? If so, do you use it regularly? If not, how come? If you don't have this library, let me know why. You know, maybe you haven't heard about it before, or maybe you just didn't like the sound. Yeah, share your thoughts with me. I'd love to hear from you. And again, if you want my full recommendation list for the sample libraries I use regularly, I'd love to give you my sample library buyer's guide. You can download it for free using the first link down below, and you can get access to that right away. And yeah, just treat it as a buyer's guide. You know, when you're on the market for another sample library, you can see if my thoughts are in there about that library, and you can check it out. And hopefully it helps you, because a lot of my students have let me know that it's really cool to see, you know, all the different libraries in one place. So I want to give you that convenience, and hopefully it helps you out. So thank you so much for watching. I'll keep you updated on the next video. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. So take care. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.